Hey bass anglers, it's the beginning of September and the bass are eating minnow forage now, and I've got a great swim bait hack that's helped me catch fish in and around weed cover when even a swim jig isn't very effective. So stick around and I'll show you what I'm doing. So in the fall time you can get around weed cover and weed lines where a swim jig can be very effective, either a swim bait or a swim jig. And sometimes they both have their place and they're very effective. I use this swim bait in a swim jig way, and I'll show you the components that I'm using. First off, I'm using a custom swim bait. You've seen these minnow style, paddle style baits. I had this one custom done by Flag Baits. It's supposed to be a golden shiner color, right? So it's got some gold, it's got some pearl, it's got some blue flake in it. It's got a great kicking action, durable plastic on it, and it's a solid poured bait, right? And then I'm using a reaction tackle swim bait hook, a 1/8 ounce 3/0 hook with the gold blade on it. And this is gonna give it that flash, and I'm doing it in a way here, I'm rigging this in a way that gets me better hookups, and that's the secret part that I wanna show you, is the rigging. And I'm using this in weedy situations, so I wanna bring this bait right through some thick cover and get the flash and the attractant, yet get good hook penetration and hookups. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my 4-inch swim bait and I'm taking an X-Acto knife and I'm gonna find the center of that bait. And on this particular pour, it makes it easy. I wanna make a slit in this bait down the pearl section of the curve in the belly. So I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna cut that bait, and I'm gonna cut as deep as the top of the variegation in the pour, because I want about a 1/4 inch in there, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, to be able to expose the hook into the top of it and have some meat to do that. And the reason I'm making that slit is I want the bite. I want bite, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute about that bite. So let's make the slit first. There's a line on this pour, so we can just follow this thing down, and we can go ahead and take our sharp X-Acto knife very carefully, and we can cut down the center of the bait and make a slit down the body. And then we can come in here after we get a good line started, we can go a little deeper, and then we can make sure we don't cut our fingers open. We make that slit, right? Okay, then once we make that slit, then we're gonna come into the nose of the bait, which we haven't touched, with our reaction tackle twist lock swim bait hook, and we're gonna twist it around. And we're gonna allow it to stay loose on there, but get it twisted in far enough. Get it positioned right, so it's hanging there. And now, so we've got that hanging there, and we're gonna come in with the hook into that slit. We're gonna find our way in there. We found our way in. And we're going to bend this thing up and then come straight out the back of the bait in the top with the hook penetration. We wanna come, it's important that that hook comes straight through, right? So there it is, it came straight through. And now we're going to ultimately be exposing that, but I want to show you a little bit about the bite. So now that we made that slit, you see when the fish grabs that bait, that whole thing sits down over the hook, over the weight, and over that slot, and I get a ton of bite on that hook. So there's room as a fish comes in and grabs that bait and bites down. I got a lot of room for hook penetration there. And so that's why I make that slit, so the belly goes right down over the top of that 1/8 ounce weighted swim bait hook there. And so I'll take and expose that puppy, and then that thing is ready to go. Now I've assured myself that the body of the bait isn't going to get in the way of that hook set, and I'm going to get a good hook penetration and a good bite gap on that hook to get the barb of the hook into the fish's mouth. And so this thing is super weedless. It can be thrown right in grass lines, right through sparse lily pad cover and outer grass edges. You can horizontally fish it down the grass line. You can perpendicularly or diagonally fish it through the cover. And you'll catch a lot of those fall fish that are aggressively feeding on these larger minnow sizes that have had a chance to grow all year. And once you get those nights that tick into the 40s and the upper 30s, even if you've got 80-degree days, you're going to have triggered that bell in the fish's brain that they've got to stop eating the tiny minnows that they've been around all summer long and start grabbing on to opportunities for bigger meals before their metabolism slows down. So it's a great time to use a minnow style bait. I think a lot of people know that. I think a lot of people know that swim baits are effective. But this little tip on using a solid bodied bait, cutting a slit in it, and then using weighted swim bait hook, a lot like this reaction tackle one here. This is a 3/0 1/8 ounce weighted. They've got a bunch of different sizes, but I like this one because I can feather it through the weeds. I'm not sinking down and bombing out in the weeds. I can ride it above them. I can this bait comes through them nice. You get some bottom flash with this flash on there, and I'll use gold flash in tannic water, and I'll use a clear flash, or a clear blade rather, in more clear water. So super effective fall bait. You're throwing a swim bait, but you can probe it in there like a swim jig and get some of those big fall weed bites. So don't be afraid to take an X-Acto knife to your solid bodied swim baits, cut yourself a slit in there to help yourself get better gap and hook penetration into that solid bodied bait, and it allows you to use that hook setup that will let you throw that puppy right up into the thick cover and comb it and weed it and feather it right through. You're gonna get clobbered by some gigantic fall fish that are feeding up for the wintertime. Hope that tip is successful and helpful for you this fall. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on the water.